I want to thank Sinn Féin as usual for bringing this motion. I think it's worthy of merit. I do have some concerns about it. However, it's time limited, it's targeted, it's capped, and it's for family homes. And I do think it's worthy of merit. Why? Because we're talking about over 400,000 families that are struggling on different types of mortgages with prices rising daily. And then I agree with Deputy Shortall, who put it very well in relation to we can't look at this in isolation. We are tempering with something because of of government policy being embedded in a completely dysfunctional system. Now, you mightn't agree with me, Minister, but that's my opinion since the day I arrived in the Dáil. Housing policy of this government and previous government is utterly dysfunctional. So we're left supporting motions like this in relation to this and saying it's worth looking at, when really houses have to be built and the prices have to come down. The price of my house has to drop. The price of your house, if you have one, simply has to drop. It is not possible to have sustainable living with houses going up. It's not possible to call government policy coherent when we're allowing the market to dictate. And I know ministers have stood up there and said that's not accurate. Let me just mention the Help to Buy scheme. Worth your while looking at the reviews that have been done on it. Not a rational scheme, wouldn't start from here. Unfortunately, it's now embedded and we can't take it out. The HAP scheme, the worst possible change in housing policy, and we're still with it, and the cost rising, $1 billion has been mentioned. And then we look at the mortgage to rent scheme. Those people that are struggling here will be moving on to the mortgage to rent scheme. Let me tell you about the mortgage to rent scheme, which was brought to my attention and forced me to read. It was introduced in 2012 to be run by voluntary bodies and housing associations. They did okay, but there wasn't huge uptake because they didn't have the capability and they weren't helped to build the capability. And then what did we do in 2018? We invited expressions of interest for a private company to come forward with the misleading name Homes for Life, because the homes are not for life, they're for 25 years. With misleading language, we talk about the local authority as a landlord when they're not the landlord. The Homes for Life is the landlord, or the voluntary bodies. So we twist language and we turn language, and we make the tenant believe that they're now a social housing tenant when they're not. And so let's look at what happened here when the company came in. The company came in. It's now in the commercial court. I'm not going into that. I realise the separation of powers, but that company is now in the commercial court because they had an agreement with another company to do the repairs, and there's a dispute about that. But more importantly, the housing body has also terminated. Let me get the exact what they're saying. The housing body has, yes, here it is. The several local authorities first, including Dublin City Council, reported issues with HFL repair works, prompting the Housing Agency to launch an investigation. In inspections of 224 HFL properties carried out by late October, 166 homes had issues and would need further to be carried out. Now, my time is running out. Why am I mentioning this? To say we went further down the road of private company coming in instead of building up the voluntary bodies. I understand there are further expressions of interest to bring in more companies, and what they do is they buy the house of the person that I have in mind in Galway, or it's actually failed on that occasion, but they're coming in. They do the repairs, they get the rent, they keep the asset, and they lease it back to the local authority for 25 years. That's called Homes for Life. One advantage was that you could buy back your house after 5 years. Do you know how many repurchases there have been? 6. 6. Has there been a business case analysis? No. Has there been a review to see what it has cost? Has there any understanding of the agreement that's between the local authorities, through the housing agency and through the department? Any analysis of what money is being paid over? Absolutely not. I'm sure we'll be told it's commercially sensitive. So can you imagine, this is another little ingredient into a dysfunctional market that's ensuring that less and less people will own their house, less and less people will be able to rent a public house at a controlled rent, and less people will be able to have security of tenure for life because of a dysfunctional housing policy from repeated governments. Gar maith the Ceann Comhairle.